Hello, welcome. This is an instructional video for you that I'm putting together about Scorpio. And who would want to have an information background on Scorpio? Well, you would if you're a Scorpio, or if you love a Scorpio, or if you have a friend or family member who's a Scorpio. And you have in your natal chart, which is also known as your God contract, you have Scorpio somewhere. So this applies to everybody, really. And because it's been a request that somebody wants to know more about Scorpio, I'm going to give you some background information. Let me start off by saying that no family ever has a Scorpio born into it that doesn't need one. And the reason for that is because Scorpio has a life purpose that is all about healing. So a lot of times a really dysfunctional family will have a Scorpio born into it, or somebody who's got not just sun, but possibly even the moon in Scorpio, because that child is meant to bring healing to family dysfunctions, patterns of abuse, abandonment, addiction, whatever it is. There's a Scorpio in your family for a reason, and they are generally a wake-up call of sorts. And as you have probably read by now in my book, The God Contract, Sagittarius, every sign, all 12 of the signs are somewhere in your God contract. And so where you find Scorpio in your God contract is where this information will apply that I'm going to share with you today. Now, if you don't know what your natal chart or God contract looks like, you can order it from my website. It's called agodlypsychic.com, and you can go to the services tab up at the top and order it. So let's get on with the story of Scorpio. Forgiving is a major attribute for Scorpio. You know that whatever life they were born into, there's going to be some forgiving they have to do. And it's often emotionally painful. There's also an intense emotional design that they're born with, and they're very fixed and determined. Once they set their mind to something, don't bother arguing with them because they're not going to change. They're fixed. They also have the gift of being an emotional healer. If you're in trouble, if you're in depression, if you are in any kind of emotional bondage of any sort, go to a Scorpio. They'll help you out of it. Now, we're going to talk about Scorpio in all of the houses. And as you know, with astrology, there are planets, houses, and signs. Scorpio is a sign. And the houses are the various areas of your life that are going to be affected. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but we all have them and we all experience them, and we're all trying to learn how to get through it and come out the other side better. That's our life purpose. So if you have Scorpio on your ascendant or rising or in the first house, that's all the same thing. And I'm not going to get technical about it, but if your first house sign is Scorpio, I know this is going to contradict what you might have heard previously about the first house, but the first house is really the personality that you developed based on the influences of everybody around you who were significant: teachers, parents, siblings, grandparents. And so it's not your authentic self, unless, of course, you happen to be a sun sign Scorpio. Your sun sign is your authentic self. So if you've got Scorpio in the first house, people may have taught you the backside of Scorpio, which is manipulative, controlling, domineering, somebody who is vindictive. You don't want to piss off a Scorpio if they're living out of their negative personality, because they'll hurt you. So if you've got Scorpio rising, unless you've got Sun in Scorpio, you have learned to be vindictive from somebody, and it definitely needs healing. If you have a personality that is painfully hurtful to other people, that's a Scorpio learned personality. Their authentic self is to be healing, not to be hurtful. The second house, if you have Scorpio, in the second house is all about money and values. Scorpio will teach you in values to make up your mind and go do it. And don't make excuses. Don't tell me that, oh, well, your clock doesn't work, your alarm didn't go off. They don't stand for any of that. And if you've got Scorpio in the second house, you don't stand for it either. Again, look at your natal chart, look at your God contract, and you'll know exactly where Scorpio is. They also have to do with money, and oftentimes in their lifetime, if you have Scorpio in the second house, you are given the responsibility of handling other people's money. This could be a sick parent, this could be a child who is mismanaging their money, but money and values are the two most important things in the second house if you have Scorpio found there. The third house is about siblings. You might have a Scorpio sibling. It's about your neighbors. You may live next door to somebody who's living out of their negative Scorpio qualities. And it kind of reminds me of the guy that used to live next door to us. He was 91 years old. He's all bent over, and he came over threatening us. He threatened the wrong people. He threatened us with taking over part of our property because he was in construction, and he knows that the boundary is 20 feet over on our property side. Well, my husband is a surveyor, so you can't pull the wool over his eyes. But anyway, if you've got Scorpio in the third house, you might have a neighbor like we have. I think he's dead now. It's also early education. You may have missed something in your early education because Scorpio is often about loss. And so maybe you weren't diagnosed dyslexic until you were in junior high. And so in early education, which is the third house, you might have missed out on a lot of your learning abilities until you learned how to learn properly. Fourth house has to do with the home and the family history. If you've got Scorpio there, you probably have a family history of negative and positive things going on in your family history. Abuse, addiction, abandonment, absolutely. But the healing side of that is that you had somebody in the family who was trying to resolve whatever the family patterns have been over the generations. It's a really beautiful placement, but it's not easy, especially when you're dealing with family history. The fifth house indicates, if you've got Scorpio there, that you are a healer for your children. In all of the areas we've talked about so far, you're a healer for them. This is also creative abilities, the fifth house is. And so if you've got Scorpio in the fifth house, you are creative with things really interestingly that have to do with death and dying and forgiving and letting go and releasing. And this could also be someone who's very gifted in the area of mediumship. And if you're not sure what mediumship is, that's communication with those who have passed over to the other side. So Scorpio in the fifth house could have to do with mediumship. It could have to do with healing for your children. And it's creative in areas that deal with all Scorpio matters. The sixth house, if you have Scorpio there, which I do, has to do with your health. And I can tell you from personal experience that if you've got Scorpio there, you have got to forgive everybody who's ever hurt you or your health is going to go to hell. I can tell you that from experience, and it is true, because when we hang on to that kind of anger and lack of understanding for broken people who took it out on us, it affects the cells in our bodies. And when you start messing with the cells of your bodies, you start bringing on sickness. So 6th house is health. And if you've got Scorpio there, by God, forgive everybody. Doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. What it means is that you allow yourself to stay healthy and well to accomplish everything that's in your God contract. 7th house has to do with partnerships. Now, that could be in love or business. If you've got Scorpio in the 7th house, you're going to be attracted to powerful. Scorpio always deals with power. With powerful partners. You may choose partners who are Scorpio. You may choose to go into business with somebody who's a Scorpio. But they are directed. They say what they mean what they say, and they don't BS you unless they're living out of their negative qualities. But that's the goal of Scorpio in the 7th house. The 8th house has to do with death and forgiving. It's Scorpio's natural house. Again, this could have to do with mediumship. You might work in the field of hospice. You may have had really wonderful spiritual awakenings as a result of someone's death. You may have had a near-death experience. And again, I'm going to say, you've got to forgive. You cannot hold on to that stuff all your life because it'll kill you. 9th house has to do with God, higher education, long distance travel. If you've got Scorpio there, you may find that you don't want to leave home. You just want to stay home all the time. You've got no interest unless there is something revealing and healing in you doing long distance travel, for example, to other countries. Chances are a person who's got Scorpio in the 9th house says, I'd just soon stay home. There's plenty for me to learn about in my own country. I don't need to travel out of the country. When it comes to God and Scorpio, death is always going to be forefront in your mind. This is somebody who has, if they've had a near-death experience, they have gone to the light, they have seen God, they know that there's an afterlife. This is a very spiritual placement for Scorpio to have it in the 9th house. And higher education, if you're thinking of going to college, think about going into any field where you can be a healer, especially an emotional healer. The 10th house, if you have Scorpio there, has to do with your career. Now, the 6th house is about your day-to-day work experience, but your 10th house is about a profession. This is something you work hard to achieve. You want a reputation in this field. You want to be an expert in this field. That's the 10th house. And if you've got Scorpio up there, there's the undertaker. What a great job for somebody who's an undertaker. This is somebody who does past life regressions. This is somebody who does mediumship. This is someone who is in a career where there may be some top secret information, which is also Pisces, but Scorpio fits in here as well. This is the secret agent. The 11th set of houses, your 11th house has to do with your goals. And if you've got Scorpio here, your life goal has got to be to heal the damage that was done to you, whatever it is, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever the damage was. If you've got Scorpio here in the 11th house, make it your life's work to get rid of that pain, that emotional pain, whatever it is, and be done with it and get on with your life. The 12th set of the 12th house is about secrets. If you've got Scorpio in the 12th house, there are probably some abuse issues that are big secrets, abandonment, addiction. If you've got Scorpio there and you have any tendencies at all toward addiction, you're going to want to keep it a secret. And as we all know, when it comes to addiction, if you can't admit it, if you can't say that you've got a problem, you're never going to fix it. And addiction will eventually get you. So those are the 12 houses and how it relates to Scorpio. So to sum it up, what is Scorpio trying to teach us? What has a Scorpio come into life to learn? Forgive everything. I mean, everything. There are some signs who could get away with it and not have it affect them. I don't recommend it. Wherever you find Scorpio, you've got to forgive and move on. And Scorpios are fixed and determined. Don't be flaky. When you give your word, let it stand for something. You are a person of integrity. You were born that way. That's your life goal from your God contract. Live up to it. And if you have any questions about Scorpio that I haven't covered, please leave a comment and I'll be happy to address it. God bless the Scorpios of the world. You are the healers and we have so much to learn from you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for liking, following, subscribing, and commenting. And most of all, I thank God that He blesses your life mightily. Love you.